Hello and welcome to Weird Reads. I am your host, Jason White, and today I welcome back Nicholas Kaufmann, and we're going to be talking about his latest collection of short stories, Monuments in Darkness. Welcome to the show, Nick. How are you doing?
Hi, Jason. It's a pleasure to be back here. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Can you give yourself a quick introduction? I don't know how many times I've had you on the show, but it's been a lot, and I always love talking to you.
This may be the fourth, maybe? I don't
Something
know.
like that, yeah, maybe the fourth, yeah, because we talked about all your Laura Powell. Ha! Yes. I remembered without having to look it up.
I know. Everyone always wants to say Laura Palmer because they immediately think of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That was my fault. I should never have given her a last name that starts with the letter P.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I am a Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com best-selling author of horror and thrillers and suspense. I've been nominated for a few literary awards, including the Bram Stoker Award and the Dragon Award. But still a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Don't worry, I've never been. I've never even gotten that far myself. So you're an award-winning author in my.
Oh, thank you. I hope one day. I know it doesn't really mean much outside to the world, but it would sure. The nominations meant a lot to me, and it just meant that someone out there is appreciating my work, which is why any writer does any work, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. The awards and whatnot are always nice, though. But yeah, I don't think anyone sets out to write just to win awards and make money. If they do, they're not going to get very far.
No, but I mean, people set out to write because they want to be read.
Yeah.
They want to share their stories, and it can really feel like you're sending your stories out into the void most of the time, and you just have no idea if anyone's even reading them. So if you do get an award nomination, at least somebody is reading and liking your work.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I know how that feels because I write because I want to tell stories, but of course I want people to read it too, and I want reactions. I want to know what people think. And sometimes you get hardly anything and you just don't know, right?
But that's why I treasure every time a reader sends me an email just being like, hey, I really enjoyed The Hungry Earth, or I really enjoyed 100 Fathoms Below, or anything like that. Like I really, it means a lot to me because again, we're working in isolation so often that is really, to know that somebody has read and enjoyed your work means so much. And that's why I always tell readers, never be afraid to reach out to your favorite authors and just let them know what they mean to you, because it means so much to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the author doesn't like it, then I don't see how. I've seen like on Twitter authors complaining about this. I forget who it was. It was like a New York Times bestseller.
An author complained about a reader saying, like, reaching out to them.
I love your book. Yeah.
I don't know. I was every atom in my body right now is saying that can't possibly be true, because we all love hearing that somebody enjoys our work.
Well, but she wasn't a horror writer. She was, I think she was a thriller writer. I want to say thriller. It might be like
very weird. Yeah, I can't imagine somebody being like, you know what? Don't tell me you like my work. Get out of here.
It was like, don't talk to me. Like, I just
what a weird thing to tweet about. Like, hey, lay off the fan mail.
I don't need your stinking opinions.
That's wild to me that somebody would really feel that way.
Yeah, I don't get it. The world never ceases to stop surprising me, though. So
right.
So I wanted to break the ice a little bit with you because there's a popular series, a show out there right now on HBO, and it's bound to become popular. It's a Stephen King adaptation. It's not really an adaptation. It's Welcome to Derry. Welcome to Derry. And I saw that. I've only seen one episode so far, and I don't know what to think about it. I'm kind of on the fence. But I read that I think it was you saw episode 3 and you thought it was pretty good, but you still don't like the series. So I was wondering, What is it about the series that you don't like?
Gosh, uh, it's a little bit lifeless, which is a weird thing to say about
Yeah.
something that's built off of one of my favorite of Stephen King's novels. But like, I think there's some good stuff in that first episode, but the second episode was a real slog. And though I thought the third episode was better, it's just not catching me. I'm not loving it. Um, Interestingly, it has the same issues for me as the source material, even though I do love the novel,
Hmm.
which is just like everything that happens with the kids is fantastic, and
Yeah.
everything that happens with the adults just makes me want to get back to the kids.
Yeah.
The
That's
kids
true.
are really the heart of the story, and I think Stephen King knew that, and that's why in the novel the kids take up much more room in that novel than their adult selves do. And even
Hmm.
when it's like 27 years later and we're focusing on their adult selves, there's still a whole lot of flashbacks to when they're kids. And that's just so much more. I don't know. It's just so much more powerful to me, and I think maybe to many other readers as well. So I don't know. It's there's just there's not a whole lot going on yet in Welcome to Derry that's catching my attention. I'm
Yeah.
kind of watching. I feel like I'm watching it because I have to, as a horror fan, which is
Yeah.
never a good thing. It's never
That,
a good thing to feel like you have to watch something rather than you're enjoying watching something. But we'll
that's where
see.
I'm at. Yeah, that's where I'm at because it's Stephen King. I have a Stephen King podcast, and
Yeah,
it's
you
like
do.
I need to watch this, right? But I don't know if I like it yet. I find one thing that's I like how you said lifeless. The characters, they don't shine at all.
Yeah. Oh,
But
that's a different property.
yeah, you're right. They don't.
Although Dick Halloran is in this because Dick Halloran is mentioned in the novel as well.
Yeah.
So Dick Halloran plays a role in this. So he does have shining. So yes, this does shine, I guess.
Well, maybe some of them shine, but not all. Certainly not all of them.
But I'm sorry, I do know what you mean though.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
not really
They don't
coming to
stand
light.
out. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I noticed that the show kind of relies on what the second movie. Well, I guess both the movies, the most
Yeah.
recent adaptations, rely on. Is that everything's normal for a bit, and then something totally batshit crazy happens, and they really play it out for a long
Yes.
time.
Yes.
And although it's really cool what they come up with and what they throw at you, 'cause those scenes they just keep building upon themselves, right? Like the
Yeah.
very first craziness that happens in the first episode is when that woman gives birth to that bat creature thing,
Right. Yeah.
and
That's
and it just
Pennywise was working overtime to create
yeah,
this whole like family and then the baby and
exactly
car.
right. But it just goes on and on. Like it keeps changing in the scene and becoming something more intense, and it's just I don't know. It's like they rely on that instead of like the
Yes.
characterization. Yeah,
I agree. I think that there's something about the novel that's really special, and that's that the entity is playing on the fears of these children,
yeah,
right? And that's why he appears as a clown. I mean, he's that's not what his natural appearance is.
no,
He may not even have a natural appearance for all we know.
yeah,
Um, but it's very spooky. There's lots of spookiness. There's lots of eeriness. There's creepy things. The movies, which I did enjoy. I like the first one maybe better than the second, but I did enjoy the movies, and also this TV series rely a lot on what I can only call Hollywood horror, which is things jumping out at you and crazy special effects scenes and stuff, which can be scary, but I don't think it's the same kind of scary, and I don't think it's quite as gripping
yeah,
as if it were really just like Pennywise is stalking these kids and sort of poking at them and teasing them with whatever is frightening to them. But instead, what we get is he just like turns into a monster and attacks them, which
yeah.
I find personally I find less interesting. But I know that there's certainly an audience for that.
If I'm going to continue watching this series, it's going to be for those crazy scenes because they're at least fun, if nothing else, right?
Understood. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true. You want to see how far they go, but I don't want to give anything away too much. But I've only seen 3 episodes, so I guess it's not a huge spoiler. But there's this sense that the U.S. Army is aware of the it entity
Hmm.
and wants to turn it into a weapon for their own use, and
Of
that is
course.
just so boring to me. It's
Yeah.
like I can't think of a more trite plot line to have than the U.S. Army wants to turn this monster into a weapon.
How the hell do they think they can contain it? Like literally.
Well, I think it's that's the Army's over ego. Like
That's
they're
their
overconfident.
Yeah, it's like in every movie, right? Like I've been watching the Alien movies with my son, and it's the same concept there, right?
Yeah,
They want to bring these things home and weaponize them, and it's like
right.
the
Waving Utani.
stupidest thing you can do.
Right, and they keep failing, but they keep being like, "Well, we're going to keep trying to get a hold of one of these things."
Yeah. Oh, you think we'd? Well, history has taught us we don't learn. So, or
No,
I mean,
so
maybe some of us do, but the ones who are in power don't. So, I guess that's maybe the point, right?
there's a funny sort of meme going around about where it's like, we finally learned how to make the torture chamber from the famous book "Don't Make the Torture Chamber." Like, and so
Yeah,
there's that sense of like humanity's just so dumb it keeps creating things that will destroy it, or
yeah,
or going after things that will destroy it.
and that's unfortunately way too true.
Yeah, we're not to get too philosophical, but we are the only creatures on this planet who actively work towards our own destruction
That's true.
in
Yeah,
in so many ways.
yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but there it is, right?
There it is. There
Yeah.
it is. That's us
Oop,
in a
there
nutshell.
it is. All right, to shift gears a little bit, I also saw on a Facebook post recently that this is something I'm interested in because I have trouble writing to music, but you said you've been writing to Alan Howarth and John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness soundtrack.
Yeah,
Do you write to music often?
I do. Although there was one time when I was so in the zone, I realized I had put on my headphones and never put on any music. But those days are rare. Um, Mostly, it's a lot more. There's a lot more work involved in that. But
Yeah,
yes, I do enjoy listening to music. It has to be, or I would prefer it to be music that doesn't have lyrics, so that I'm not sort of distracted by that.
yeah,
But if it's a song I know really well, then I'm not distracted by the lyrics, so it's not that big a deal. But usually, I prefer things like soundtracks or just instrumentals that can set a mood. The Prince of Darkness soundtrack is so creepy and ethereal, and it's got those great Carpenter synths going on. And if you're writing something creepy, it's perfect for that.
yeah. I remember that. I've seen that movie a few times, and if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since the last time I've seen it, there's a lot of movie music in it, and it's pretty creepy music. Yeah,
Yeah, I really enjoy listening to that, or also to things like there's a genre of music called dark ambient, which is really just a lot of sort of
yeah,
droning and chanting, but it's quite good to write to. And also sometimes if I need something a little more upbeat, there's dark wave, which is all synths and stuff like that, but with a sort of darker edge to it, and very reminiscent actually of John Carpenter's work. So yeah, those are the things I like to listen to. And then every once in a while I'll be like, hey, I'm going to put on a Rush album. Or I'm gonna, like, or
yeah.
I'm just gonna put on like my '80s Pandora radio station, But
Yeah,
generally, I find it a little easier to write to something that doesn't have lyrics because I'm less distracted.
yeah. The lyrics always pull me out, even if I don't like the song. But especially if I do like the song, because then you start, singing along with it.
Yeah, that's
And,
the thing.
yeah,
Totally. Well, you
and
just start
sometimes you're
rocking
like,
out.
yeah,
Yeah, you start air guitaring.
yeah. You're like,
I
this
do a
was
lot
a
of my.
mistake. I
I
played
do a
air
lot of.
guitar the whole time.
I only had an hour to write, and I just spent the whole time air guitaring.
Yeah,
Um, I tend to do a lot of my writing at the New York Public Library, so I'm kind of in public, and
oh,
with my
nice.
headphones on, I don't want to start air guitaring in front of people because then I'm going to look ridiculous. So
You get up on the table, start kicking people's drinks over, and
it's like something out of an '80s movie.
or an '80s music video. Yeah, they're like, "Oh God, he's lost it." I want to put a pin in the discussion of music, so we're gonna kind of come back around to that.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
but your most recent release is Monuments in Darkness. I want to thank you again for sending me a copy.
Of course, my pleasure. I also have a copy here too. Oh, look at that! It's so hard to not get a glare.
Yeah, it is right.
It's every Was it you who told me that's like every YouTuber's challenge?
It's a YouTuber's nightmare. We're all
Yeah.
like, do mat covering, do the mat covering.
For real, I actually prefer matte covering, but a lot of books, especially if they're done through print on demand rather than
Yeah,
offset printing, they have that sort of glossy cover to them.
you can always find the angle. Is what I say. There's always an angle where there's no glare
Yes,
somewhere.
yes.
You just got to find it. It's a collection of short stories, and it had kind of a weird release, in my opinion, because it seems like it's been out for a while, but for a long time, there was a limited release, right? I think,
There was not a limited release, but there was sort of a staggered release where
yeah.
the paperback. This is unusual, but the paperback actually came out before the ebook,
Hmm,
which is very unusual. I don't know why. I think it was just some production issues with
okay.
the publishers. But yeah, it came out in July and didn't get much traction because I think a lot of people at this point really are ebook readers rather than paperback readers, even though I still love that feel of a
Yeah,
paperback in my hands. But I understand, as a man who's run out of room for books in his home, I understand
yeah,
the appeal of
yeah.
ebook.
Look, yeah. I have books piled upon books, and it's
Hmm.
yeah. I know
But
that feeling, but yeah,
once the ebook came out, then sales got a little bit better. So that's gratifying. But still, it's a collection, and boy, do I wish collections sold as well as novels, but they just don't seem to.
yeah. I remember bugging you. I was like, "This book is out, but when am I going to be able to like get a copy to read it?"
Yeah, yeah,
Because I was going to buy it, but you sent me an e-arc too, which was
I
really
did.
handy.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So that was good, and yeah, it's when you're working with small presses, there's not always a lot of lead up time. It's sort of
yeah,
like, when's it going to happen? They don't know, and then you get an email saying it's coming out next week, right?
yeah. Or tomorrow.
Right. So you do what you can.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of this book. So I'm delighted to be talking about it with you, and hopefully, some people will hear this or see this and think about picking it up.
Yeah. Now, in tradition to the publisher, which is Hippocampus Press,
Hmm.
uh, a lot of these stories, not necessarily all of them, but a lot of them are very strange.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering. I'm wondering because this is the first short story. You have two short story collections now. Am I correct, or is
I
there
do.
more?
My very first book was a short story collection called Walk in Shadows, but
Yeah.
that's been out of print for a long time now. And then I
But
had another one called Still Life: 9 Stories,
okay. Yeah.
which came out, I guess, a little over a decade ago. So I guess it's time for me to have this new collection out.
Yeah. But is it typical of your short story writing to write strange, weird horror?
This is definitely more weird fiction, right? This one,
Yeah.
certainly compared to, say, the Laura Powell novels and stuff. But yeah, my short fiction has always been a little weirder, which is a weird thing to say. Um, but when I started writing short fiction, it was very much more in sort of the classical horror sense. Here's a horror story. It would be
Yeah.
like basically like a Tales from the Crypt kind of thing with a twist at the end or whatever, right? Very very sort of classical horror. And it wasn't until the mid 2010s, I think, that I started to read more weird fiction and be like, "This is fantastic,"
Hmm.
and I wanted to try my hand at it. And I felt like I understood it on a certain sort of instinctual level. I'm not sure anyone really understands weird fiction in terms of like a definition, but
Yeah.
on an instinctual level, you know what it is because it's unsettling. It gets under your skin in a way that's different from regular horror.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt like I liked that so much I wanted to give it a try, and you know thankfully I was not terrible at it, and I got some stories published, and eventually they wound up in this collection.
Awesome. That was actually my next question. If you
Mhm.
gravitate towards weird fiction at all in your reading.
I do now. Again, my trajectory with reading was much the same as my trajectory with writing,
Hmm.
where my reading originally would be, when I was writing sort of classical horror, I'd be reading a lot of classical horror, very much 80s style pulp horror novels, heavy on gore, If I was lucky, there'd be some atmosphere, but usually it was just sort of like a lot of violence.
Yeah.
Um, but then that switched when I started reading authors like Livia Llewellyn, Nadia Bulkin, John Langan, Laird Barron, Daniel Brown, our mutual friend.
Yeah.
I was so it just lit a fire under me. It lit up parts of my brain that I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was really drawn to it because it's so weird fiction and strange tales and stuff like that. They're so atmospheric and they really work your brain too, because they can be very ambiguous. And you sort of get to think at the end, like, did something supernatural happen or was there some other explanation? And I just love being able to think about stories after I'm done with them, as
Yeah.
opposed to being like, well, that was a good story. And then moving on to the next.
Absolutely. That's why I love weird fiction. It instills in me a lot. If it's done to the way that I like it,
Mhm.
I'm not going to say if it's done right, because really, what is that?
I know, yeah. You hear that expression so often, but really
Yeah.
what people mean is, this is the way I prefer
Yeah.
it.
If it's done to the way I prefer it, it'll instill within me a sense of awe and wonder,
Yes,
and
yes.
and then it'll get me thinking, like, well, what if, you know?
Well, it's really a kissing cousin of cosmic horror,
Yes.
which also gets you thinking and instills you with that sense of awe. I used to feel like I'm not a great horror writer because I look up at the stars at night and I feel awe instead of dread, right? A
Yeah.
horror writer would feel like, oh, what a dread of like what lurks within the darkness between the stars, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's just really pretty.
You can like with me, you can have a sense of both, though, a sense of awe and dread,
Hmm.
because you realize just how, like, it's that old adage that, you look up at the stars and you realize just how small you are. um
Absolutely.
yeah, but it's also very beautiful to look at. Like everything
Yeah.
in the world, it's beautiful, but it'll kill you pretty quickly.
Yes. Space exists to kill you. It's constantly trying to kill you.
Yes.
But it's funny to think like, Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft looked up at the stars, felt insignificant, and felt terror because of that. Whereas myself, and I'm sure others too, look up at the stars, feel insignificant, and feel a sort of a peace with that.
Yeah. uh,
I enjoy being insignificant. How terrible would it be if everything in the universe relied on my choices, my
oh,
decisions in life?
you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I can go with that. I think that's a healthier approach too. It's like the
Yeah,
idea that we're not going to be here forever. If you can find comfort in that instead of dread, then I think life will be much more pleasant.
I agree. I agree. And we all want to have a pleasant life, um,
As pleasant as it can be, anyway.
as pleasant as it can be under the extenuating circumstances.
Yeah. Now, do you a lot of these stories were they published in anthologies or magazines?
Magazines. Many of these were in magazines like, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. I have to look it up. Black Static, that's the one.
Black Static is so
Yeah,
good.
I absolutely always wanted to be published in Black Static, which was a British horror magazine that was sort of a sister to Interzone, which is a
Hmm.
famous British science fiction magazine. Um, so that was a dream come true to have two of them. And then there were also stories that were published in anthologies as well. There's a story here from an anthology called Shadows. What is it called? Shadows Out of Time, which is a play on the H.P. Lovecraft title Shadow Out of Time. But
Hmm.
it was a Lovecraftian um, anthology, and so I wrote a bit about like the Migo from what is it called, Yugoth, which I think was Pluto uh,
Yeah.
in his lore. But yeah, and then there was another one. There was a charity anthology for the Pixel Project, which is a anti-violence against women organization. So there's a story that I wrote for their anthology as well, which is called "Giving the Devil His Due," and that was a fun, difficult story to write as well because a lot of the stories were about abuse and revenge, and it can be hard to write abuse scenes, but it can be very cathartic to write revenge scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess I would say there's a mix of stories that were in anthologies and stories that were in magazines, and then there are two originals in there as well that were written specifically for the collection.
Awesome. There's a reason why I asked that. It's because I went through the the publication credits, and I noticed that there were more magazines than anthologies, and so typically writers will write for an anthology because either they've been invited or they want to try to get into an anthology because of maybe that's an interesting theme.
Hmm.
But magazines, usually you just write a short story and send it off to like a list of magazines, hoping one of them will pick it up. So
Yes.
when I see that list and it's mostly magazines, it makes me think you must write short stories for the hell of it.
Yes.
And that's what I want to get to, because I love writing short stories. I love
Good.
reading short stories. So I'm do you write short stories a lot? Is this something that you regularly do?
I focus more on novels these days, but when I'm between novels and my brain is sort of recharging and my energy is coming back up, then I'll probably write a short story or two. Um, I enjoy writing short stories very much.
Hmm.
Uh, there's something to be said for a writing project that you are able to complete uh, quickly.
Yeah.
You get that sense of completion. Um, but I also, my short stories are very different from my novels. A lot of my short stories are written in first person, but I don't really write novels that way. For instance,
Hmm.
a lot of my short stories are, lean towards weird fiction, whereas my novels don't. And I think that's just because of the different, the different formats. I think weird fiction lends itself very well to a shorter format, like a short story or a novella. And I think a straightforward horror or a thriller lends itself very well to the novel length.
Yeah. Find your I lost my tongue somewhere in there. But do you think that weird fiction will ever creep its way into your novel length work?
Well, I'm writing something right now that's a horror thriller, and it's very much sort of in the vein of "And Then There Were None." It's about a bunch of strangers who are on a bus, and the roads got flooded out, and now they're trapped at basically a rest stop. Um, then this rest stop has a history behind it, where some 10 years ago, some people were killed there, and then murders begin to happen again.
Hmm.
But there's an element of maybe the weird or supernatural to it. There's I don't want to give too much away, and also it's still sort of half formed in my mind as I work on revisions.
Yeah.
But there's at the rest stop there's an exhibition. There's an exhibit there, a permanent exhibit of geodes that the owner had collected. Geodes being those rocks that have crystals inside them that you'll often see in specialty stores or whatever. And there's an enormous geode that sort of looks like a large looming figure in a robe, and they call it the abyss. Um, and the killer is obsessed with the abyss. And there are little hints that I'm peppering through that maybe there is something about the abyss that's different from a regular stone, right? That maybe
Yeah.
affects people in that way. So elements like that, yes, I think that kind of stuff will always find its way into my novels, especially if I'm writing something that's not specifically horror. Like,
Yeah.
I guess this is a horror thriller, but I'm leaning towards the thriller side, despite the gruesome murders.
Yeah.
Um, but I because it's me writing it, I just have to put some sort of horror, supernatural element in there, or weird element.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it will, but I'm not sure. I mean, you have writers of great skill like John Langan who can put together a story like The Fisherman, a novel like The Fisherman, and it works. And that's weird fiction from start to finish.
Hmm.
Um, but I think he is a few steps above me in his abilities as a writer. So I'd love to reach that level someday and maybe give it a shot as well.
I wouldn't put yourself down in that way. I think he's sure he's on a different level than a lot of us, right? But
Yeah,
so is
sure,
Laird
sure.
Barron. But they're nowhere on the level to each other either.
Yeah,
You just write. I would say we're all parallel. We just all have our own what's the word, like our own strengths.
I
And
think that's a great way to look at it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Because you can certainly tether a great story, and this collection here proves it. The one thing I really liked about it, not only was it weird, but you play with a lot of tropes in here. It almost felt
Mm.
like like if you were or if you had written this all together in one go, it would have felt like you were picking your favorite tropes and having a hell
Yeah.
of a time with it.
Thank you. I do enjoy standing tropes on their head and seeing, what falls out of their pockets. It's horror is filled with tropes, and I got nothing against them. I'll throw on an '80s slasher as quickly as I'll throw on something brainy and ethereal.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there's more joy to be found as a writer in sort of either subverting or playing with those tropes rather than leaning on them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I kind of want to swing back a little bit to the science because the
Mhm.
first three times I've had you on Weird Reads here, especially the last one, I really went for the weird science with Nicholas Kaufmann.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
right. Well, I love weird science. It's why I have a podcast of my own called
yeah,
Spooky Science Lab.
and I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank
Um,
you.
but in this work here, I noticed a lot of weird science creeps into these
Hmm.
stories as well.
I guess I can't let go of it.
No, that's a good thing though. You shouldn't let go of it because it makes for awesome fiction.
Thank you. I'm always on the lookout for weird science stories, weird but true science stories.
Yeah,
There was recently one out of, is it somewhere down south, maybe Central or South America? I can't remember. I don't have the information in front of me, but they just found a giant spider web where something like 10,000 spiders were living together in
I
a
saw
city.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a city of spiders, and they've never seen anything like that before. And that stuff fascinates me and just lights up my imagination so much. Like, what are those spiders doing?
yeah. It's
You
like a
know? Like,
giant wall of a web,
yeah.
a
And
giant wall, and
there's
it's
a
filled
picture
with
of one of
spiders.
the explorers, one of the people who discovered it, is pushing against the web, and it looks like it's solid. It looks like
Yeah,
a blanket of webbing. It's wild.
and
So I
apparently
love that kind of stuff.
there's like millions of flies that fly in that area where they are, and that's what they feed off, and that's how they're
Yes.
able to sustain themselves. And it's I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of spiders myself, so I'm not sure I want to get too close.
I don't
But I'm
mind
just
spiders, but I hate it when you walk into their webs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sure they hate it too.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I
They're like,
worked on that for like a
come
day,
on, I spent all day spinning this thing, man.
and now it's all over your face. Great.
The worst is when that happens and you feel the spider web on you and you're like, oh my god, is the spider also on me?
Yeah.
Like was it hanging out on the web when I walked through it?
Yeah,
Terrible.
there's a weird fact. I don't know the exact number, but apparently we eat like 3 spiders in our lifetime while we sleep, or something like that.
Nope, don't want to hear that.
I don't want to hear that either.
Don't want to hear that.
Like, well,
I'm gonna
good night, Nick. I hope you have a great sleep tonight.
I'm gonna start taping my mouth shut while I'm sleeping.
Yeah, that's horrifying to me. But otherwise, outside of my bedroom, I don't mind spiders at all. But inside the bedroom, yeah, they're off limits.
That's the thing. Yeah, I mean, if an insect of any kind comes into my home, I'm like, you're trespassing, and now I'm gonna have to kill you. But if I see an insect on the forest floor or something, I'll just leave it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's like ready to attack or something. But yeah. You mentioned that you have 2 short stories or originals to this collection.
Yes,
And did you write them specifically for this collection?
I did. I did. I was in talks with the editor at Hippocampus, and we realized that there were no original works in this collection. I just sent him a bunch of stories. I was like, "Here, I want to make a collection out of these stories," and you got to have some value added to get people to buy the book if maybe they've read the stories before. So
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely need at least one original story. They wanted to sort of round out the page count and make it worth people's while. Um, and So I already had the idea for one of them. There's a story called um, uh, what is it? Six
Yeah.
strikes on a laboratory lightning rod. So I already had that idea before. Um, but the second one, Companion, I just sort of wrote it. I just sort of wrote it and just saw where it went and played with it and stuff. And I think it came out really well.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, I really enjoyed the entire uh, collection. I don't think there was a story in there that I felt was a bummer or
Oh,
a
good.
letdown. But I have a question about the six strikes on the laboratory lightning rod.
Yes.
Um, I just wanted to, because this story is kind of it's interesting,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
I just want to know how well what was like. Okay, you knew that you wanted to write this story, but do you remember where the kernel came from?
Yes. Um, so I had read an advance copy so that I could give a blurb to my friend Teal James Glenn's novel, Not Born of Woman, which is a sort of horror PI novel about basically Frankenstein's monster comes back from the Arctic, sets up shop in New York City as a PI, but he's not the monster from the movies, and he's not the monster from Shelley's book either. He's sort of a third alternative monster, as if as if what happened with Frankenstein and the creature was a real story and inspired Shelley to write her book. So in this universe, there's the creature who calls himself Adam, but he references the novel and he references the Karloff movies, so they all exist in this same universe.
Yeah,
And it really was just a wonderful novel. I highly recommend it. It's first in a series. I think he's got a whole trilogy planned. So I was like, wow, I love this idea. I kind of also want to write now about Frankenstein's creation,
hmm
um, but I don't want to. I don't want it to be Mary Shelley's. I want it to be basically the Karloff movie Frankenstein. So, what would his story be like? How
yeah,
would he be living if he, it's not a modern day story now, but it's like, after, I guess, after Bride of Frankenstein, what would he be doing? What would his
yeah,
life be like? Um, and so I just sort of took it from there, and it went in some interesting directions, to be sure.
yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to ask about it because, like I said, all these stories are kind of weird. Some are more weird than others. This one was like I knew it was kind of a Frankenstein like story,
Hmm.
but of course, you don't mention the word Frankenstein or Victor
Right. Oh,
Frankenstein
he
or
does.
anything like that. You kind of got to figure it out yourself. But
Yeah.
you also have like this weird ass circus in there.
Yeah.
You have this fish person,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and it's just insane.
Thank you. I take insane as a compliment.
Yes,
Yeah. So
it's meant as a compliment. If I say that was insane, then I mean it as a compliment.
if I figured if this is the Karloff Frankenstein from the Universal movies, then the other monsters from the Universal movies are also present in this world. And so he does sort of mention like how he once saw a man turn into a bat and another man turn into a wolf, and of course the fish man is from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah,
Um, but where the carnival came from, I can't say other than that carnivals are just creepy anyway.
yeah,
There's like an element of creepiness to them, especially the so-called freak shows, right? Which I think they probably call them something else at this point, um, because freak is kind of an insult. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but there's just something about it, like um I don't want to sound like I'm prejudicial, but there's always this feeling of like, can I actually trust somebody who works at this carnival, or are they just trying to get money out of me? So
Yeah,
like, are the games rigged? Are the people who are telling you to look at this cool thing in a tent? Is it going to be baloney when you get into the tent?
absolutely. Yeah,
Um, so there's just an element where you're sort of, as much fun as you have, and I've always had fun at carnivals and state fairs and stuff, but as much fun as you're having, there's an element of being on guard as well, right?
yeah.
If I give them $10 for X amount of darts to play this game, how hard is it going to be? It's probably rigged against me, whatever. And even if that's not true, I think we go in there with that sense of being on guard. So
Well,
there is definitely something about the carnival setting that sets us on edge.
I don't know what it's like working on a carnival, but there's like traveling carnivals, right? And
Yeah.
you get a sense of the people who work them are they're just not happy people. They look like they smoke too many cigarettes and
Oh,
maybe
definitely.
drink too much whiskey. And
in their
yeah,
defense,
yeah,
if
but
I worked,
it might be a shitty job, so I don't know.
that's what I was going to say. If I worked at a traveling carnival and this was my life, breaking it down, moving to the next town, setting it up again, dealing with screaming kids and weird parents or whatever,
Yeah,
I'd probably drink a lot too. You know,
yeah, me too, honestly.
just to get through it.
Yeah,
But it's definitely, it's seasonal work, so they're probably not getting paid a lot anyway.
yeah,
Yeah, it can't be a great life. I think it's you gotta love it if you're gonna work at a carnival. You gotta
yeah.
love it.
But I think that adds to the atmosphere of going to the carnival. Is you just can't really. They don't look friendly, you know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, I don't want to come off as prejudicial, but I know
No.
what you mean. Where like,
Yeah.
you
So
just,
kind of
I
dancing
wouldn't.
around how to say it without being offensive. But
Mm,
I think what it comes down to is what we mentioned is probably really awful work, grinding and a
yes,
lot of hours, and you're on the
yes,
road all the
and you're
time.
you're dealing with people all day long, and
Yeah,
there's a saying in retail, well, that retail would be great if it wasn't for the customers, and I feel it's probably got to be the same at a carnival. Like working at a carnival,
yeah,
your customers are your lifeline. That's how you get paid. But like, they're probably a lot to handle.
yeah. I do not doubt that at all. So I want to go back to the first short story.
Mm,
There's the fire and the stag. Now
yes.
there is an actual jump scare in this that it almost made me jump. It takes place inside the tent.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Very well done because
Thank
I
you.
wasn't expecting it. If it was on the screen, it definitely would have made me go, you know.
Thank you so much for saying that. It's very hard to do jump scares in the written word.
Yeah,
So I'm glad that it was effective for you.
but
That
I
was a
like
fun story.
yeah, I like the premise of it. Anytime somebody goes missing, and
Hmm.
you have somebody else going to look for them, that always piques my interest, especially if there's perhaps something weird going on. That
Yes.
yeah.
This was one of my first attempts at writing weird fiction, and I'm glad
Oh,
it came out
nice.
as well as it did. It's gotten a lot of great notice, thankfully. And it all started with an image in my mind of leaves blowing in the wind, like the leaves in a forest blowing in the wind, and somebody being alarmed by that, somebody being sort of afraid of that. And I was like, well, why? I just followed that thread. Why on earth was this guy afraid of the wind? Like, what's going
Yeah,
on? Um, and that turned into an understanding that this character is agoraphobic. He doesn't like to leave his apartment. He thinks nature is he's right in thinking nature is red in tooth and claw, and he wants nothing to do with it. He just wants to stay where he believes himself to be safe. Um, but his sister disappears when she goes camping in a state park,
hmm,
and there's no one. The police aren't being helpful, and he takes it upon himself because he's very close with his sister after a tragedy in their background. He's very close to her. She really is his caretaker. He decides he has to leave his apartment and go out into nature and find her.
yeah, because she was there for him so often.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another aspect I liked about it. Not I liked their relationship and how close they were, but what I
thank you.
liked was your depiction of depression, because
Mm,
he suffers from chronic depression,
yes,
and I feel that you nailed chronic depression as a person who has it.
thank you, thank you.
And
I appreciate that. As a person who doesn't have it, I'm happy to hear that. I know many people who do have it, and I drew upon my knowledge of what they've been through.
yeah,
But I'm, knock on wood, I don't suffer from that myself.
well, if anyone wants to know what it's like, and because they don't have it, go read The Fire and the Stag from Monuments in Darkness.
Thank
It's
you.
pretty spot on. Like I'm not like that now necessarily because
Good.
I'm on a good medication, but
Great.
I've been there and I know what it's like, and it's not. It's a nightmare from day to day almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
One of my closest friends is the writer John C. Foster, and he's also in a similar situation where he finally found the right medication and he's doing a lot better.
yeah,
But he would suffer hard. He would have basically one good week a month, and then the rest of it he was like in the hole. And it's tough as his friend because there's nothing we can do. There's just
yeah,
nothing we can do about it except be there for them. My
yeah.
brother also suffers from depression. A lot of people in my family do. I'm just lucky that it skipped me.
You're very lucky.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
But you know what? It has positives to it too. I'm not gonna like completely poop all over it. It gives you an interesting, I think, an interesting look at life
Hmm.
without being negative. I think you can have like a different perspective of life without the negativity. I don't know if because a lot of people who are depressed, they're just unhappy and they have very low opinion on life itself. But you don't have to have that opinion. You can look at it as what it is: life, space, the Earth, thin atmosphere. We're insignificant, all that crazy stuff. Uh,
Hmm.
and it's beautiful, but it's also dreadful. There's two
Yeah.
sides. Yeah.
For sure, and I know that there are a lot of creatives who suffer from depression, and I wonder if there's a connection, especially in the horror writing field. A lot of them, and I
Yeah.
do wonder if there's a connection between that sort
I
of
think
dark
so.
imagination and depression.
Honestly, I think so because it's a darkness.
Hmm.
And that's what it is. Ultimately, it's not light; it's dark, and it can cloud your whole mind. And I think when you're touched by that kind of darkness, it's not that you're addicted to it or anything like that. You just understand it and you appreciate it when you see it uh, in whatever media you consume. So if you suffer from depression or have suffered from depression, you're going to connect with a story that has elements of depression in it, even if the author doesn't suffer from depression.
Yeah,
But that
yeah.
that includes like atmosphere or characters,
Hmm.
almost or even the monster, right? So I think it's just it's more familiar, and I think that's why people who have depression tend to write it and probably read it too.
I think people who suffer from chronic depression probably have a different and perhaps better reading on a film like The Babadook than
Hmm.
those who don't suffer from depression. Because my reading of that film was very much The Babadook is depression, right? And
Yeah,
that's why she is unable to defeat it at the end. She can only manage it, right?
yeah,
She keeps it in the basement. She feeds it, but it's managed. It'll never go away. It's just something she
yeah.
has learned to manage.
This was like another rotation. It happened before. I had that feeling that this had happened before. And the one reason why the kid in that movie is acting up so much is because he sees it happening again.
Hmm.
And there's one scene in there that I'm really impressed by, and it's probably a scene nobody really thinks of. But when you're depressed, it's like you can never get enough sleep. And
Yeah.
there's that moment when she goes to sleep, and then she wakes up. To her, it's only like a few seconds had passed, but
Mm.
in actuality, it had been like 9 or 10 hours, and
Right.
it still
Right.
feels like it wasn't enough sleep. And she's like crying because she's so tired.
Mm.
That right there is what it is.
Yes. 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 And I think I can absolutely trace that internal darkness to putting darkness on the page
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. To maybe go on to something a little bit lighter. I want
Okay.
to. I want to move on to The Rest is Noise because
Oh yeah.
I had John Palisano on the show a few episodes ago, and we talked about his book Requiem, which was about music and space. And we talked a lot about how like he's a musician, and
Mm.
so I got a lot of information out of him on why this is. But I've always been fascinated. What is it about music that can have such a narcotic hold on people?
Uh, Speaking personally, I've always had a great jealousy for people like John who can play music, who can
Yeah,
create
me
music.
too.
It's not something I've ever learned to do, and I would love to if
I've tried. It's
find the
just
time.
I've tried, but it's not for me. It kind of ruins the fun of music for me when I start to play it. So
Because you're seeing how the sausage is made, right?
maybe, yeah, maybe.
um, but that was an early attempt. That story, The Rest is Noise, an early attempt at cosmic horror, which I guess could fall under the weird umbrella, or weird falls under the cosmic umbrella. Either one.
They're
Um,
sisters and brothers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, well, I've always been sort of fascinated by the effects music has on people. There's an idea spoken by one of the characters in the story that music comes from God, right? The trick is, which God does it come from? But
Yeah.
there's this idea that it's divine, and it makes so much sense to me because aside from things like bird song, we are the only creatures on Earth that make music, and it affects us on an emotional level. And that's, how did that happen? Where did that come from? How did that evolve? Because
Yeah.
it's not, music is not the evolution of something to protect us. It's not a safety thing. It's not a predatory thing. It's where does it come from? It's purely entertainment. Well, not entertainment, because I feel like that's too shallow a word, but it exists for its own purpose. And it's fascinating to me. Why? How did we develop this? Why did we develop it?
Yeah.
Who was the first human to like blow into a reed and feel that the noise that it made, the sound that it made, was beautiful and wanted to keep doing it?
Yeah.
It's wild. We imagine, there must have been a caveman way back when who just banged two rocks together and discovered rhythm.
And the other
But
started to
there's
dance.
right, started
Yeah.
headbanging.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to music than rhythm. There's melody, and where would that have come from? It's impossible to know. I mean, we can hypothesize. We can say maybe they were trying to emulate bird song. Maybe it was a way of communicating over long distances, because music as a sound can travel farther than our voices. But we don't know. We just don't know, and it has turned into something that is just completely a beautiful thing that we enjoy and that affects us on an emotional level. I mean, we can hear a song that doesn't affect us. Let's say I'm not particularly into thrash metal, for instance.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, slow down that guitar. I want to actually hear a melody.
Yeah.
But so that may not have an emotional reaction for me. But if I hear a really good rock song, ballad, anything, even a good hip hop song can really affect you on an emotional level and bring you joy or make you think about things. I'm a huge fan of prog rock. I love Pink Floyd and some of the more neo prog groups like Early Marillion or IQ out of Canada. And there's a darkness to their music as well. But it makes you think and it makes you feel. And like, if you listen to The Wall, you go through those emotions that
Hmm.
Roger Waters is writing about. And it's just so magical to me that I was like, I got to write a story about this that explores this idea of the magic of music.
Yeah. And that's, I'm fascinated by everything you just said there. It's stuff I've thought about before. Like, where the hell does this come from? Like,
Yeah,
how do we have radio stations? How do we have Spotify and all this stuff, right? But sometimes when a song really hits, it's there's like nothing else like it. It's
yeah,
almost, it's like taking a drug for 5 minutes, and
yeah.
then you're sober again, and it's the
So
most incredible thing.
replace that word drug or the word magic with divine, right?
Yes,
And
yeah,
that's at the heart
divine.
of
Yeah,
this story. Like, does it come from someplace else? I don't, speaking as me, Nick, rational human being, I don't believe it comes from someplace else. I believe it came from us. But in the story, to explore this idea that music has some other higher being to it was really, really fascinating to me.
that's an interesting concept because I'm an agnostic naturally. There's no science backing this, but there's no science proving it wrong either. So,
Hmm.
so maybe there's something to it. Who knows? Like, there is certainly something spiritual about music, and I think you touched upon that.
Yeah, and I think in the story there's a sort of revelation as to what's going on, which might not be great for the people involved, but
Yeah,
um, I hope people will read that story and see what we're talking about here, about the sort of that power of music.
absolutely. Yeah. Spawning season. This story was really interesting because it really felt like a Lovecraft story,
Hmm.
but there's no Lovecraft lore in it. I was wondering, but it really, like, it seriously had that feel. Like, I'm thinking of Innsmouth,
Yeah, yeah, because
Shadow over Innsmouth. Yeah,
it's a seaside community in Virginia in the
yeah.
story.
And
Um,
was that like was Lovecraft an inspiration for this?
oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I read and enjoyed Lovecraft's entire oeuvre back in my 20s, and I
Yeah.
know that it's stuck up here in my brain. So I think I know it's affecting a lot of what I write. But that one's got an interesting genesis, because I was actually approached by someone who worked at Tor Nightfire. They were just launching their imprint, and they wanted to do a an audiobook of horror stories, and would I be interested in being part of that? And I said, sure, but I don't have a reprint that's the right length for you. So I wrote this story for them specifically. They were like, we're looking for things that are, I think it was under 5,000 or under 2,000 or something. It was very short, shorter than what I normally write. So it was actually a very good exercise, I think, in sort of learning to write a little shorter.
Yeah.
But also, it's another good exercise in how the power of using first-person protagonists, writing, I instead of he,
Mm-hmm.
can really carry a story with fewer words, in my opinion, because so much comes out through the voice and and memory and all that kind of stuff. This is a half-formed thought, so it may not make sense, but but it just seemed like easier to write shorter in first person because so much more is coming out through their voice, through their memory, through their thoughts, without having to stop and be like, and then he remembered back in the day when blah 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 happened. And so it cut a lot of words, and in my opinion, I think it's better for it. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to writing in first person a lot for short stories, because it just flows better for me.
Did that anthology come together? And is
It
it
did,
still
yeah,
available?
and it's free. It's free online. If you look up, it's called "Come Join Us by the Fire," I think, and it's got some wonderful stories in it, read by some wonderful narrators. The fellow who read my story for it was fantastic, um, and yeah, I highly recommend it. It's got some amazing writers in there.
Awesome. I'm going to check that out. The one thing I like about it is the premise. It's about a small fishing village, but
Mm.
there's no women. It's only
There are
men.
no women. And so this guy, he comes from the village, but he now lives, I think, in New York City, trying to lead a normal life. But he can't date because because they will ask too many questions about where he lived and how you were able to have a village with no women and but still have children. And it would just be too weird for them to understand. And I get it. I
Yeah,
get it. I think he's right about that. I don't think anyone he talks to on a date would understand exactly how this village works.
yeah. It's pretty interesting. It, it's kind of crazy how where your imagination can go sometimes, right? Like,
I don't want to look too deeply on this one either. Except
yeah.
that I do. There's a there's a creature in it that's very much based on um, uh, what is it? What are they called? I want to say horsefish, but that's not right.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You know what? I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah. Why are we blanking on this word?
I
It's
don't know.
ridiculous. Um,
Seahorse.
Seahorse.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
that's
you.
there. It is.
Jeez, what the heck? I gotta get some. I gotta start taking some kind of
Vitamins
ginkgo
or
for my
something. Yeah.
brain.
Well, apparently I do too. It came out very slowly there. I was like, seahorse.
At least you got it. So yes,
Yeah,
there's a creature in that very short story that's based a lot on a seahorse,
yeah,
um, it was fascinating to do. You know me, I love to do research into science stuff, right? So it's
yeah,
fascinating to do research into seahorses and like why do they act the way they do when it comes to mating,
yeah.
right?
And how
Because
about
the
birthing? Have you ever
and
seen a
birthing,
seahorse give birth? That's crazy.
it's crazy stuff. And I mean, I think they're very weird looking creatures, but I think they're very beautiful creatures.
Yeah,
There's a strange sort of gracefulness to them, especially when they're just hanging out, like they have a tail wrapped around some sort of sea plant and they're just hanging out there. That's amazing. Um, but yeah, so after learning about the seahorse, I sort of integrated that into the story as a sea creature that has an important tie to the village.
yeah.
So in that way, and in the whole weird how do they mate thing, um, I can see the relationship with Innsmouth very much in that.
I want to talk a little bit about the Fifth Horseman.
Mm.
This story, I think, was one of the longer ones,
Yes, yes.
and
I was very happy when Black Static accepted that story because I was like, this is too long for almost any other market I can think of.
yeah,
I think it's between 8 and 9,000 words or something. Like that's a lot for a short story.
yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
Good.
It's like folklore. I have in my notes here. This is the fifth horseman. The fifth horseman is
Hmm.
folklore at its best.
Oh,
Because
thank
I
you.
wasn't sure what was going to happen, and of course, you go into some pretty weird territory. And the ending was a lot of fun. Can you tell us how the story came to be?
This how did this story come to be? The story came to be. Uh, this is one of those stories where the ending came to me first. This idea of people who they're basically looking like we all are for a meaning to life,
Yeah,
right? And though it's never expressed in the story itself, they learn what that meaning is and are not happy with it. Um,
yeah,
so that came to me, and that's not certainly not original. It's that has been done before. One that springs to mind is the French movie Martyrs, where there's a
yeah,
group that's torturing people to try to get visions of what's beyond this world, and as soon as they actually get the vision, they kill themselves because they're like, "Fuck it,
yeah. This
no,
is too much. Yeah,
this is too much." So it's very similar to that, in that they're finding the truth beyond the world as we see it, and being unhappy with that truth.
yeah,
But I also, and this is sort of a little bit how the sausage is made situation. But I always really wanted to write a mummy story. you know, this is that classical horror part of me coming out again. Who is,
yeah,
I was a monster kid growing up. I love all the classic monsters, including mummies. But I didn't want to do like a traditional Egyptian mummy. I felt like that had been done better and more often in the past, and you couldn't really improve upon it.
yeah.
So these were South American mummies, and there are nations of Central and South America that did practice mummification. It was not just Egypt. So I wanted to do that and sort of explore some real nations how they did mummification and stuff. And so it all just because it turned into such an academic idea. I was like, I think the characters need to be in academia. I think they need to be professors at a college, and they've got their clique, which are the four horsemen. But then this other person shows up, making them the five horsemen, which doesn't work as well. Um, and then, not for nothing, but I also wanted to write a story about how do I put this? The main character is a black man,
Hmm.
and the police get involved, and they with the events of the story, and they sort of immediately start to suspect him because
Hmm.
of basically his skin color and connection to one of the people. But I was so worried about writing this story because it's not my lived experience, and I didn't want to come off writing it in a way that would upset anyone or insult anyone or put anyone off.
Yeah.
So luckily, I'm very good friends with the writer Victor Laval,
Nice.
who's, by the way, one of our greatest
Yeah.
horror writers, in my opinion, greatest living. Um, and I wrote to him and I said, Victor, this is going to sound so weird, but would you mind? Uh, would you have the time to be sort of what they call a sensitivity reader,
Hmm.
right? And look over the story and just tell me if I'm stepping in it, because I don't want to step in it. I don't want to turn anybody off. I don't want to put off any readers because I've gotten something wrong.
Hmm.
And God bless Victor. He took the time to read through it, and he pointed out some things here and there, and the story is so much better for it. So I'm so glad that I have a friend like him and that he was
Yeah.
able to help out. And also, he threw in a little sort of extra line edits in a few places, and I was like, "Listen, if Victor Laval thinks I should change this word to that word, I'm going to frickin' change it."
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really a fun and I think in this case necessary collaboration,
Yeah.
just to make sure, because I can write Caucasian characters, I can write Jewish characters, uh, but the black experience, especially when it comes to relations with the police, is just not my lived experience,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure that it read as authentically as possible.
Was that part of something you were trying to say in the story, or did it just kind of come with the story and then you were like kind of afraid to approach it that way?
Um, it's been a while since I wrote it, so I can't say for sure. I think it was something I wanted to say in the story because I remember reading a lot about traffic stops that had gone wrong in a tragic way, and it was almost always black male drivers.
Yeah.
So that's in this particular main character. That's in his past. His father died under those kinds of circumstances, and so that's always sort of tainted his idea of who the police are. After a policeman pulled his father over and shot him for reaching for his license and registration too quickly.
Yeah.
And which is happened. Also
which
is also a true story. Yeah. Or based on a true story. Or probably several true stories. So I did want that in there, and I think that has maybe thematically has to do with his distrust of authority. And so there's a character who's sort of the head of the Four Horsemen who he distrusts very much, who's sort of an authority figure, and he distrusts this guy. And it's all sort of a melange of influences and reasons. But yeah, so that's I think it was something I wanted to touch on in the story for sure.
Yeah,
I also on this same sort of subject. This was for a novel that got scrapped, but I was doing research on stop and frisk, which is something that we had here in New York City for a while, and it was eventually supposed to have been shut down because they were just targeting black students on their way to work, on their way to school. And I saw it happen a number of times in my own neighborhood, which is predominantly African and Caribbean American. And I realized I could burglarize apartments with impunity and walk right by these cops who are just stopping, black high school students and searching their bags because they weren't looking at me the way they were looking at these students.
Yeah.
So I did some research on that, including one situation. I know I'm rambling, but there was one situation where somebody actually secretly recorded their stop and frisk stop by two officers. Mm-hmm. And it was harrowing. These officers were clearly getting off on the authority they had over another human being. They were calling him names. They called him a mutt, which is a name that I hadn't heard before as a slur.
Yeah.
Towards a person, and it was absolutely harrowing. So I think that was sort of something I was looking into around that time, and so it definitely came out in this story as well, The Fifth Horseman. And like I said, I'm so grateful to Victor LaValle for helping me maneuver my way through that.
Yeah, I did have like a kind of funny reaction to a part of this story. Okay, so I'm gonna try to not spoil anything here, but the main character, he comes across three bodies. I'll just say it's three bodies. The first one he calls the cops, and like you said, they pressure him and are like, "What were you doing? And how did you find this body? And what was your relationship? And all this stuff." Mm-hmm. In like a couple of hours, he finds the second body, and so of course the tension goes up in the the questioning. But then when he finally comes across the third body, he's like. He pulls out his phone. He's about to phone the cops, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to pass on this.
Yeah.
But very wise decision. Even when he came to the second body, I was like, don't call the cops. But he calls the cops, and then of course in the third one, he's like, I'm not gonna bother.
Not gonna bother. No. And unfortunately, that is a real side effect of what I was talking before, which was the stop and frisk. Situation that we had. It drove such a wedge between the community and the police that the police weren't able to get information out of the community anymore about crimes. When they're looking for, who knocked over this liquor store, nobody wanted to talk to the police about it because that police officer might have been the same person who just stopped and frisked them on the street for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that program too, and when they put a stop to it. And it's good they put a stop to that because, like,
I think so. There's some idea of whether they truly did or not. Well, I'm glad there's at least attention.
In a sense, it's gotten worse with other things. So
certainly, we are. I can only speak for my nation, the United States, and saying that we are on the wrong path. But I also feel like nationalism is on the rise everywhere, which I don't understand.
It's weird,
Um,
but you're right. Yeah.
yeah,
There's a big movement in Canada too, and it's getting bigger all the time. Um, and
it's
it's
nuts. I don't
terrifying.
get it.
A lot of people say I'm going to go move to Canada, and I'm like, well, we got our own problem with the exact
Yeah,
same thing, the exact same thing, except we don't have a Trump. But if we did have a Trump, we'd be in serious trouble.
you had Rob Ford, who was a very Trump-like character.
He's
Uh,
yeah, you know what? He's a little bit like a Trump because people keep voting for him. I live in
yeah,
Ontario, which he's premier of, and
yeah.
I keep voting against him, but everyone else freaking votes him in. I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't make
Listen,
any
I
sense.
don't understand why we returned Trump to the White House at all. Like, I don't
Yeah,
get it. I'll never understand it. But we're, you know what, we're dating this conversation. Like, if
yeah,
somebody listens to this 10 years in the future, they're going to probably be like, or longer, hey, who are they talking about? Who's that
yeah.
guy?
Well, hopefully it's all over by then, and everything's
Yeah,
gone back to some peace and goodness.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, there's one more story I want to talk about, and then
Yes,
I will let
yes,
you go. It's another favorite of mine, and it's General Slocum's Gold. Now, it's
yes.
another longer one,
That
more
is,
like
it's
a
called a novelette.
yeah novelette. It's an interesting action-like story, but it
Mm,
has criminals, a protagonist with a special supernatural talent, and
hmm.
one hell of a horrifying ending. The ending almost does not match the beginning, but because of the process, of course, it makes sense. But my
Oh
God,
yeah,
man,
he's on a journey.
yeah. So
That fella.
I want to know more about this story, like how you came up with it, what it was like writing it, and did you like? You must have wrote it by the seat of your pants, I'm assuming, because
Yeah, yeah. I knew what I wanted to write, but it was, even despite its length, I didn't need a an outline necessarily for this one. It actually dates back to 2007. It's the oldest
wow,
story in the book. Um, a friend of mine in Canada, Monica Kubler, who also
oh, I know
works
her.
with, yeah, you know her. Everyone in Canada knows each other, right? But she also works with Rue Morgue. But she had decided she's going to start up a publishing company called Burning Effigy Press. This was back in 2007. She said, "Would you write something for me for our chapbook line?" And I said, "Sure, absolutely." And I had already had this idea that I wanted to do something involving the General Slocum tragedy of 1900 something or other. Um, I was like, "This is a good opportunity because to dive into that finally." Um, and so I wrote it specifically for her chapbook line. Um, and you know, I do have an affinity for the mixture of crime and horror. I
Hmm.
think they're both very dark genres, and I think they play well together. So I wanted to sort of do that with this story. He works for a mob figure. He knows how to get information out of people through his special abilities. Um, and he's extremely loyal to this guy Whitey, who is his sort of mob boss, uh, and goes on this trip with him to Small Brother Island, where the General Slocum tragedy took place, which was, for those who don't know, it was a steamship from sort of what was called Little Germany in New York. It was supposed to be it was a church group. It was a big outing. They were going to go and have a picnic, and something went wrong, and the ship wound up coming aground. There was a big fire that came out, and they came aground on I think it was Small Brother Island. Anyway, it's a fascinating story. It's a terrible tragedy. It's a very New York story. So I wanted this, to reflect that. So I use a lot of sort of New York landmarks and stuff like Rikers Island plays a role in it and all that stuff. It was a fun one to write, and at that weird sort of length of about 15,000 words, I was like, "There's nowhere else I could sell this anyway." So I'm very grateful that she's putting together a chapbook series for this, and it was very well received. It was actually nominated for a Bram Stoker Award back in
Nice.
2007 or 2008. Um, didn't win, but you take it as it comes. Um,
Yeah.
It was a tough year. There were a lot of great nominees in the long fiction category that year. Um, but yeah, so I've always been grateful to that story because I think it was the first story of mine that got any real traction with readers, um, and uh, and wound up being nominated for an award, which is always nice.
That's awesome. 2007 was a special year for me too because it was the first. It was my first sale ever. Like somebody actually paid me for a short story, and
Fantastic.
that was 2007. And that yeah, so that's an awesome year. Yeah,
Yeah, let's all go back to 2007.
it was.
Things, well, no,
Well,
things were not necessarily better then.
yeah,
That's true.
there was some weirdness, but not as weird as today, and terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monica Kubler, she with Sephora Garin, she ran a
Hmm.
podcast called uh, Great Lakes Horror Company podcast,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I worked with them for a little bit. I did like 5 or 6 episodes interviewing authors for them, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. I don't have the right number, but yeah. So I worked with her sort of in that scape, and I remember she wanted because I had Laird Barron on the Darkness Dwells podcast. She was like, "Can you get Laird Barron on this show?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll ask him." And so I asked him, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll come on." And so just before I go on, I get a notice from them. It's like, "Oh, we only make it a half hour long. We don't want one of those 2 hour conversations." And so I bring this up to Laird, and he's like,
Oh,
"How?"
no.
He's like, "How am I supposed to talk about anything in only 30 minutes?"
I agree. I agree. Uh, I enjoy hearing Laird talk about stuff, so
Yeah,
I would have listened to him for 3 hours.
yeah, absolutely. I love talking to Laird because he loves to talk, and boy, Kenny, and that's like a great gift.
Absolutely. He gets so passionate about writing and about
Yeah,
cosmic
stories and
horror and weird
yeah,
fiction, all of that stuff. But yeah, Monica and Sephora have both been friends of mine for many a year now. They're good people.
they are indeed. All right, you're good people too. I want to thank you for coming
Oh,
on and talking
thank
with
you so
me,
much.
and thanks
Thank
again
you.
for my copy of Monuments in Darkness. It was it was great read. I highly
Thank you so
recommend
much.
these short stories because they're all very entertaining and fun, and some of them are really like messed up. Man, they're out there.
You know what goes on in the mind of a writer, you can never
Yeah.
tell.
So before we go, do you have any releases coming soon that you can talk about? Short stories or otherwise?
Um, no, I'm still working on that novel, so it's going to be a little while before that comes out. But we are planning to start up the podcast again, Spooky Science Lab,
Nice.
in the new year,
This will
probably
be
in
your third
January.
season?
Season 3, that's right.
Yeah.
Spooky Science Lab 3D. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. I'm just starting to put together some ideas for the episodes. So, and the research phase is always the most fun.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, keep an eye out for stories and novels in the years to come.
Excellent. Where can listeners find you online? Or maybe a better question is, where do you post your updates most so that people who want to follow you, where can they find you for that?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Instagram. If you just want to check out my books, you can check out NicholasKaufmann.com. Make sure to put two N's at the end of Kaufman. If you go to NicholasKaufmann.com with only one N, I cannot guarantee what you're going to see. Probably nothing. Um,
Or some lawyer from like Kentucky.
well, there was that lawyer at the ICC who had my name,
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
all the folks from the
You,
Philippines thought I was him.
yeah, that was an issue you went through, right? Like I
That
remember
was
you were kind of upset about it
that
because
was back in the spring. Yes,
yeah,
it's all taken care of now. Hopefully, no more mistaken identity.
that's
But
good.
yeah, so check out NicholasKaufmann.com, Kaufman with two N's at the end. You'll get all sorts of information about my books. And then if you just want to sort of connect with me, Facebook is a great place to do it. Blue Sky, Instagram. I'll post a picture once in a while. So I guess Facebook and Blue Sky it might be better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming here, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy talking with you, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed Monuments in Darkness.
Absolutely. Until next time. See ya.
Bye bye.